She thought love meant compromise. He taught her it meant survival. When Jason Graham throws Vanessa Harris into a deadly Ohio snowstorm, she collapses at the gates of the city's most dangerous man. Kang Seojin doesn't save broken things. But something about the woman freezing in his driveway makes him break every rule he's ever made. This is a story of betrayal, power, and a love that demands nothing but offers everything. Will Vanessa choose the safety of submission or the danger of true freedom? Stay until the end to find out. Hello, fam. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Heartbeat Stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on which moment hit you hardest. Tell us where you're watching from, and thank you so much for your support. Jason's hand slammed against the wall beside Vanessa's head. She didn't flinch. Not anymore. 3 years with Jason Graham had taught her that flinching only made him angrier, gave him more proof that she was weak, that she was the problem. So she stood perfectly still in the living room of the house she'd been foolish enough to call home, her arms wrapped around herself, watching the man she'd loved transform into someone unrecognizable. "You're pathetic," Jason spat, his face flushed red, his expensive cologne mixing with the sharp scent of whiskey. Standing there like some wounded animal. "Do you have any idea how exhausting you are?" Vanessa's throat tightened, but she kept her voice level. "I just asked you a question, Jason. I just wanted to know who Kella is." "Who Kella is?" He laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "You go through my phone like some paranoid psycho and then act like you're the victim here? Your phone was on the counter. The messages were right there." Her hands trembled despite her best efforts. "You've been seeing her for months." "Months, Jason. While I've been here, working 2 jobs, paying half the bills, believing we were building something together." "Building something?" Jason stepped back, running his hand through his perfectly styled hair. "What exactly were we building, Vanessa? You think sharing rent makes this a relationship? You think because I let you move in that I owe you something." The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. "Let you move in." As if she'd been a charity case, a stray he'd taken pity on. As if the past 3 years had been some kind of favor he'd been doing her. "You asked me to move in," she said quietly, fighting to keep her composure. "You said you wanted us to have a life together. You said you loved me." "I thought I did." Jason's voice turned cold, detached, like he was discussing a business transaction gone wrong. "I thought you were different. Independent. Strong. Turns out you're just like every other woman who needs a man to take care of her. That's not fair." Vanessa's voice cracked. "I've never asked you to take care of me. I pay my share. I work myself to exhaustion. I've never once asked you for anything I couldn't earn myself." "Exactly." Jason moved to the liquor cabinet, pouring himself another drink with steady hands. "You're so busy being independent, so busy proving you don't need anyone, that you forgot how to actually be in a relationship. Kella understands that. She knows how to make a man feel wanted. She knows how to be soft, feminine, present." The comparison cut deep, just as he'd intended. Vanessa had spent her entire childhood in foster care, bouncing from house to house, learning early that survival meant self-reliance. Love was conditional. Safety was temporary. The only person she could count on was herself. When Jason had pursued her 3 years ago with his charm and persistence and promises of permanence, she'd wanted desperately to believe that maybe, finally, someone saw her worth protecting. But protection had slowly morphed into control. His initial admiration for her independence had soured into resentment. Her careful budgeting became evidence of poverty mentality. Her work ethic became an accusation that she cared more about her jobs than about him. Every quality he'd claimed to love had been reframed as a flaw, a failing, proof that she wasn't enough. "So that's it?" Vanessa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You've been cheating on me for months, and somehow I'm the problem because I'm not soft enough for you? Don't make yourself the victim here. Jason turned to face her, his expression hard. You want to know the truth? Kala makes me happy. She doesn't question me. She doesn't go through my things. She trusts me. She appreciates what I do for her. What you do for her. Vanessa felt something shift inside her chest, a final thread snapping. You mean you buy her things? Is that what this is about? You want someone who will be grateful for your money instead of someone who wants to be your equal. Equal. Jason laughed again, the sound bitter. You're a waitress and a retail clerk, Vanessa. We were never equal. I make in a month what you make in a year. The only reason you could afford to live in this neighborhood was because I was generous enough to let you stay here. There it was. The truth he'd been holding back for months, maybe years. She wasn't his partner. She was his project. His charity case. The girl from nowhere he'd tried to mold into someone worthy of his world, and when she'd refused to be shaped, when she'd insisted on maintaining her own identity and independence, she'd become disposable. I want you out. Jason set his glass down with a decisive clink. Tonight. Vanessa stared at him, certain she'd misheard. What? You heard me. Pack your things and get out. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. Jason, it's below 0 outside. There's a snowstorm warning. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. He pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. I've already texted Kella. She's coming over in an hour. I want you gone before she gets here. The casual cruelty of it, the planning, the precision, made Vanessa's stomach turn. This wasn't a moment of anger. This was calculated. He'd been waiting for the right moment to discard her, and her discovery of his affair had simply accelerated his timeline. Where exactly am I supposed to go? She hated how small her voice sounded, how desperate. But it was a legitimate question. She had some savings, but not enough for a deposit and first month's rent. Her friends were few and far between, most of them coworkers with their own struggles. Her pride had kept her from building a safety net, from admitting to anyone that her relationship was crumbling. Not my problem. Jason picked up his glass again, taking a long sip. You're always going on about how independent you are. How you don't need anyone. Prove it. Jason, please. The word tasted like ash in her mouth, but fear was overriding pride now. Just let me stay until morning. I'll call in sick to work, find a place, be gone by tomorrow afternoon. Please. You can't send me out into a blizzard. I can do whatever I want. This is my house. You have no legal claim to it. You're not on the lease. Hell, you're barely more than a guest who overstayed her welcome. He gestured toward the stairs. You have 30 minutes to pack whatever you can carry. After that, I'm changing the locks. You're really going to do this? It wasn't a question. Vanessa could see it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw. He'd made his decision, and nothing she said would change it. This was who he'd always been underneath the charm and the promises. She'd just been too hopeful, too desperate to believe in permanence to see it. I really am. Jason pulled out his phone again, pointedly ignoring her. 29 minutes now. Vanessa turned toward the stairs, her legs moving on autopilot. The shock was beginning to wear off, replaced by a numb, mechanical efficiency. She'd survived worse than this. She'd survived childhood in the system, aging out at 18 with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes and a high school diploma. She'd survived homelessness before, couch surfing and living in her car until she'd saved enough for a studio apartment. She'd survived every abandonment, every disappointment, every betrayal that life had thrown at her. She would survive this too. In the bedroom they'd shared, Vanessa pulled out the duffel bag she'd kept tucked in the back of the closet. Some part of her had known this day would come. Some part of her had never fully unpacked, never fully committed to the illusion of permanence. She grabbed clothes quickly, not bothering to fold them. Underwear, socks, jeans, sweaters, her work uniforms. Her laptop, the old one she'd had since college. The jewelry box her foster mother from her teenage years had given her, one of the few people who'd actually seemed to care. Her important documents, all kept together in a folder because she'd learned early that you had to be ready to move at a moment's notice. 20 minutes. She worked faster. Her toiletries went into a smaller bag. Her winter coat, the good one she'd saved 3 months to buy. Her boots, gloves, a scarf. The practical part of her brain was cataloging what she'd need to survive the night, while another part, the part she usually kept locked away, was screaming that this couldn't be happening. That the man downstairs couldn't really be throwing her out into a deadly storm, that this had to be some kind of nightmare she'd wake up from. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was her life. And she'd learned long ago that life didn't care about fairness or justice or mercy. Time's up. Jason's voice came from downstairs, hard and final. Vanessa slung the duffel over her shoulder, grabbed her smaller bag, and took one last look at the room. The bed where she'd slept beside someone who'd apparently been planning her disposal for months. The dresser that still held half her clothes, things she'd have to leave behind. The framed photo on the nightstand of the two of them from last summer, smiling at some barbecue, looking like a couple who had a future. It had all been a lie. She walked down the stairs, her boots heavy on the hardwood. Jason was waiting by the door, holding it open, cold air already rushing inside. The snow was coming down in thick, aggressive flakes, the kind that reduced visibility to almost nothing. The wind howled, carrying the promise of a dangerous night. Wait. Vanessa stopped a few feet from the door. My phone charger. I left it in the kitchen. Tough luck. Jason's expression didn't change. You've taken enough time already. Jason, my phone is almost dead. I need the charger to call for help, to find a place to stay. Should have thought of that during your 30 minutes. He gestured outside. Out. Now. Please. Just let me grab the charger. 30 seconds. I set out. Jason took a step toward her, and Vanessa instinctively moved backward, toward the open door. The blast of freezing air hit her like a physical force. Kala's almost here, and I don't want any drama. Leave with some dignity, Vanessa. Dignity. He was throwing her into a blizzard and talking about dignity. Vanessa walked through the door, the cold immediately seeping through her coat. Behind her, she heard the door slam, the deadbolt click, the chains slide into place. Final. Absolute. Jason Graham had erased her from his life as easily as deleting an unwanted email. She stood on the front porch for a moment, trying to organize her thoughts, to formulate a plan. The temperature had dropped significantly since sunset. The weather alert on her phone earlier, before the battery had started dying, had warned of wind chills reaching -20. Exposure could kill in under an hour in these conditions. Her car. She'd parked on the street because Jason liked his driveway clear. If she could get to her car, she could at least get out of the wind, turn on the heat, figure out her next move. She pulled her coat tighter and stepped off the porch. The snow was already accumulating, several inches deep and getting deeper by the minute. The wind cut through her clothes like knives. Her face burned from the cold. She could barely see past a few feet in front of her, the streetlights creating strange halos in the swirling white. Vanessa trudged toward where she remembered parking, her duffel bag weighing her down, snow already soaking through her jeans. Each breath hurt, the cold air searing her lungs. Her fingers were going numb inside her gloves. This was bad. This was really bad. She reached the spot where her car should have been and found nothing but empty curb. Panic flared hot in her chest. Had she remembered wrong? She spun around, trying to get her bearings, but everything looked the same in the storm, every house identical, every street marker obscured. She walked further down the block, squinting through the snow, searching for her beat-up Honda. Nothing. Then she remembered. Jason had asked her to move it last week, said it made the street look cluttered, said she should park a few blocks over where the older cars wouldn't lower his property value. She'd done it to keep the peace, to avoid another fight about how she didn't belong in his world. A few blocks over. In this storm, it might as well have been a few miles. Vanessa's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands, hope flaring that maybe Jason had changed his mind, that maybe some shred of human decency had surfaced. But it was just a low battery warning. 5% remaining. She didn't have time to walk blocks in this weather. She needed shelter now. She turned, trying to retrace her steps to Jason's house, thinking maybe she could wait on the porch, out of the worst of the wind. But she'd gotten turned around in the storm, and nothing looked familiar. The houses all blurred together, expensive facades hidden behind walls of white. Keep moving. She'd freeze if she stopped. Vanessa picked a direction and walked, her body already starting to shiver uncontrollably. She'd read somewhere that shivering was good, that it meant your body was still fighting, still trying to warm itself. It was when the shivering stopped that you had to worry. The snow was up to her calves now, making each step a battle. Her duffel bag felt like it weighed 100 pounds. The wind pushed her back, making progress almost impossible. She couldn't feel her toes. Her face had gone from burning to numb, which was worse, so much worse. How long had she been walking? 5 minutes? 10? It felt like hours. She couldn't tell anymore. Time was losing meaning, everything reduced to the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other, of not giving up, of surviving just one more minute. She stumbled, went down on one knee in the snow. The cold was so intense it felt like heat now, burning through her clothes. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, vision blurring, and saw the screen go black. Dead. She was completely alone now, no way to call for help, no GPS to guide her, no lifeline to the outside world. Get up. She had to get up. If she stayed down, she would die here. Vanessa forced herself to her feet, swaying, disoriented. Through the snow, she could make out a shape. A house. A big one. She stumbled toward it, her body running on pure survival instinct now. There were gates. Tall iron gates that looked expensive and imposing, but they were shelter. She could press herself against them, maybe get out of the wind. She reached the gates and collapsed against them, her legs finally giving out. The metal was so cold it burned where her skin touched it. She should try the intercom, should call for help, but her hands wouldn't work anymore. She couldn't make her fingers move to press the button. So cold. She'd never been this cold. The shivering had stopped. That was bad. That was really bad. She knew that. But the knowing felt distant, unimportant. Sleep seemed like such a good idea. Just close her eyes for a minute. Just rest. Vanessa's eyes drifted closed. The snow kept falling, already beginning to cover her body, erasing her from the landscape. Another invisible girl disappearing into the night, another casualty of trusting the wrong person. She didn't hear the car pulling up on the other side of the gates. Didn't hear the sharp command in Korean. Didn't feel the strong arms that lifted her. Didn't register the transition from freezing death to warmth and safety. Vanessa Harris had survived so much in her 26 years. But as consciousness faded completely, she had no way of knowing that her survival tonight would change everything. That the man now carrying her into his house was more dangerous than any storm, more powerful than any force she'd encountered. And that sometimes, the most dangerous thing wasn't the monster who threw you into the cold. It was the one who pulled you back from the edge and made you want to stay. The first thing Vanessa became aware of was warmth. Not the artificial heat of a car or the weak warmth of inadequate clothing, but real, deep, surrounding warmth that seemed to seep into her bones. The second thing was softness beneath her body, like she was lying on a cloud instead of frozen concrete. She tried to open her eyes, but they felt heavy, unwilling to cooperate. Her body ached everywhere, a deep, bruising pain that suggested trauma. Her fingers and toes burned with the particular agony of frozen flesh warming up again. She made a small sound, something between a whimper and a groan. "Don't move too quickly." The voice was female, older, accented. Korean, Vanessa's fuzzy brain supplied. "You have been through much. Your body needs time." Vanessa managed to crack her eyes open. She was in a bedroom, but not like any bedroom she'd ever been in. The ceiling was high with exposed wooden beams. The bed beneath her felt expensive, the kind of mattress that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Everything was decorated in shades of cream and gray, minimalist, but clearly expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows on one wall showed the storm still raging outside, though from inside this room it looked almost beautiful rather than deadly. An older Korean woman sat in a chair beside the bed, her face kind but concerned. She wore simple clothes, black pants and a gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She held a cup of something that steamed gently. "Where am I?" Vanessa's voice came out as a rasp. "You're safe." The woman stood, moving closer. "That is all you need to know right now. Here, drink this." Slowly. She helped Vanessa sit up, propping pillows behind her, and held the cup to her lips. The liquid was warm, some kind of herbal tea with ginger and honey. Vanessa sipped carefully, the heat sliding down her throat, easing some of the rawness. "What happened?" Vanessa asked after a few more sips. "I was outside. I couldn't find my car. I fell. Mr. Kong found you at his gates. You were unconscious, nearly frozen to death. He brought you inside. That was 5 hours ago. 5 hours." Vanessa's mind struggled to process that. It was the middle of the night now. Jason had probably already welcomed Kala into the house, into the bed they'd shared. He probably hadn't spared a single thought for whether Vanessa had survived the storm he'd thrown her into. "I need to go." Vanessa tried to swing her legs out of bed, but her body wouldn't obey. Everything felt weak, disconnected. "I can't impose on whoever lives here. I'll figure something out. You will do no such thing." The woman's voice was firm but gentle. "You have frostbite on your fingers and toes. Minor, thankfully, but you need rest and care. You nearly died tonight. You are not going anywhere until you are well. But I don't know you. I don't know this Mr. Kong. I can't just stay in a stranger's house. Would you prefer to return to the storm?" The woman raised an eyebrow. "The temperature outside is now -25 degrees. The roads are impassable. Even if you wanted to leave, there is nowhere to go." Vanessa closed her eyes, fighting back tears. The woman was right, of course. She had no car, no money for a hotel even if she could reach one, no friends she could call in the middle of the night. She was completely dependent on the kindness of strangers, the one position she'd spent her entire life trying to avoid. "Hey," the woman's voice softened. "I am Mrs. Park. I manage Mr. Kang's household. You are not an imposition. Mr. Kong gave clear instructions that you are to be cared for until you are fully recovered. This is his choice, his offer. You may accept it without shame. Why would he help me? He doesn't know me. Mrs. Park smiled slightly. Mr. Kang is a complicated man, but he does not believe in letting people die on his doorstep. Come now, drink more tea. Then you should sleep again. Your body needs it. Vanessa wanted to argue, to insist that she was fine, that she could handle this herself. But she was so tired, and the bed was so comfortable, and the alternative was so terrifying that she found herself nodding, accepting Mrs. Park's help to lie back down, feeling the warm blankets settle over her like a cocoon. "Where is Mr. Kang?" she asked, her eyes already drifting closed again. "He is working. He keeps unusual hours. You will meet him when you are stronger." Mrs. Park's hand smoothed the blanket, a maternal gesture that made Vanessa's throat tight. "Rest now. You are safe here. I promise you that." Safe. What a strange concept. Vanessa had never really felt safe, not even with Jason, not even in the house she'd called home. Safety was an illusion, a trick people played on themselves to feel less afraid of a world that could turn on you in an instant. But as sleep pulled her under, in this stranger's bed, in this stranger's house, Vanessa felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Not quite safe, not yet. But maybe the beginning of what safe could feel like. Maybe the first crack in the armor she'd built around herself, the armor that had kept her alive, but so desperately alone. When Vanessa woke again, pale winter sunlight was filtering through the windows. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world buried in white. She felt stronger now, more alert. The burning pain in her extremities had faded to a dull ache. Her body still hurt, but it was manageable. She sat up slowly, looking around the room properly for the first time. There was a door that she assumed led to a bathroom, another that probably opened to a hallway. Her duffel bag sat on a chair in the corner, looking pathetically out of place among the expensive furniture. Whoever had brought her inside must have grabbed it from where she dropped it outside the gates. The door to the hallway opened, and Mrs. Park entered carrying a tray. You're awake. Good. You have more color today. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck, Vanessa admitted. But alive, so that's something. Alive is very much something. Mrs. Park set the tray on the bedside table. It held a bowl of rice porridge, some side dishes, more tea. Simple food, exactly what someone recovering would need. Eat. Slowly. Your stomach will need time to adjust. Vanessa picked up the spoon, surprised by how hungry she was. The porridge was perfect, warm and soothing and subtly flavored. She ate carefully, aware of Mrs. Park watching her with an expression that was part caretaker, part guard dog. "Can I ask you something?" Vanessa said between bites. "Of course. What kind of man is Mr. Kong? What does he do?" Mrs. Park's expression became carefully neutral. "Mr. Kang is a businessman. He values privacy, discretion, and loyalty. He has strict rules, but he is fair. If you are honest with him, he will be honest with you." It was a politician's answer, carefully phrased to reveal nothing. Vanessa's instincts, honed by years of navigating dangerous situations, started sending up warning flares. A house this expensive, this isolated, with gates like a fortress. A man who kept unusual hours and commanded this level of loyalty from his staff. The careful way Mrs. Park spoke about him, like she was describing someone powerful and potentially dangerous. "Is he dangerous?" Vanessa asked bluntly. Mrs. Park met her eyes. "That depends entirely on whether you give him a reason to be." It wasn't a reassurance, not exactly. But it was honest, more honest than most people would be. Vanessa respected that. "I don't want trouble," Vanessa said quietly. "I just want to get better and get out of here. I don't want to owe anyone anything." Mr. Kang does not expect you to owe him. He helped you because it was the right thing to do. What you do with that help is your choice. Mrs. Park stood. Now finish eating. I will draw you a bath. You will feel better once you are clean and in fresh clothes. An hour later, Vanessa felt almost human again. The bath had been luxury itself, the kind of deep-soaking tub she'd only seen in magazines, with water hot enough to ease her aching muscles. Mrs. Park had provided clean clothes, simple but well-made, in exactly her size. Somehow they'd known or guessed, or maybe they just kept a variety of sizes on hand for emergencies. That thought sent another chill through her. How often did Mr. Kang have emergencies that required spare clothes for women? What kind of business was he really in? But those questions would have to wait. Right now, she needed to focus on practical matters. Getting her phone charged, finding her car, figuring out where she could afford to stay until she saved enough for a real apartment. Her life had been upended in one brutal night, and rebuilding it would take time and planning. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, testing her balance, when the door opened without a knock. The man who entered was nothing like what Vanessa had expected. She'd imagined someone older, maybe overweight, probably loud and aggressive. Instead, Kang Seo-jin was probably in his mid-30s, tall and lean, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than her car. His face was angular and striking, his dark hair styled precisely, his eyes sharp and assessing. He moved with a kind of controlled grace that suggested physical power held carefully in check. He was, objectively, one of the most attractive men Vanessa had ever seen. And one of the most intimidating. Miss Harris. His voice was smooth, barely accented, the kind of voice that could command or seduce with equal ease. I see you are recovering well. Vanessa stood, instinctively straightening her spine, refusing to show fear even though her heart was racing. Mr. Kong, I need to thank you. You saved my life. I did what anyone should have done. He closed the door behind him, staying near it, giving her space. Points for that. Though I admit, finding someone nearly frozen at my gates was unexpected. What happened to you last night? The directness of the question caught her off guard. Most people would have danced around it, made polite small talk first. But there was something refreshing about the bluntness, about not having to pretend. My boyfriend threw me out during the storm, Vanessa said, lifting her chin. I couldn't find my car. I got lost. Your gates were the first shelter I found. Something flickered in Kang Seo-jin's dark eyes. Anger, maybe, or disgust. Your boyfriend threw you out in a blizzard? Ex-boyfriend now, I suppose. I suppose so. His voice was cold enough to match the temperature outside. What kind of man does such a thing? The kind who values convenience over conscience. Vanessa was surprised by the bitterness in her own voice. But that's not your problem, Mr. Kong. I appreciate your help more than I can say, but I don't want to impose on your hospitality any longer than necessary. If I could just borrow a phone charger, I'll figure out my next steps. Where will you go? The question hung in the air between them. Vanessa realized she had no good answer. Back to Jason Street to find her car? Then where? A cheap motel that would drain her savings? The shelter that was probably full this time of year? She had options, technically. They were just all terrible. I'll figure something out, she said, forcing confidence into her voice. I always do. Kang Seo-jin studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he moved further into the room, but stopped a respectful distance away. Mrs. Park tells me you have frostbite on your fingers and toes. Minor, but it requires care. You also show signs of moderate hypothermia. Your body is still recovering from significant trauma. I heal fast. I am sure you do. But leaving now, before you are fully recovered, would be foolish. The roads are barely passable. You have no transportation immediately available. You are in no condition to walk to wherever your car is located. He paused. I have a proposal for you, Miss Harris. Vanessa's guard went up immediately. What kind of proposal? Stay here until you are fully recovered. 3 days, perhaps 4. Mrs. Park will care for you. You will have food, shelter, safety. In return, I ask only that you follow the rules of my household and answer any questions I have honestly. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. What kind of rules? Do not enter my private office. Do not speak to any of my associates who may come to the house. Do not attempt to access secure areas. Essentially, respect my privacy and my business, and I will respect yours. What kind of business are you in, Mr. Kong? His lips curved into something that might have been a smile, but looked more like a warning. The kind that functions best when people do not ask too many questions. So he was a criminal. Maybe not in the conventional sense, but definitely operating outside the law. Vanessa should be terrified. She should refuse his offer and take her chances with the storm and the shelters and the uncertainty. That would be the smart thing to do. But smart hadn't gotten her very far lately. Smart had led her to trust Jason. Smart had led her to believe that love meant compromise and that she could shape herself into someone worthy of staying. Smart had nearly gotten her killed last night. Maybe it was time to try something different. Why are you helping me? Vanessa asked. You don't know me. For all you know, I could be lying about everything. Are you lying? No. Then perhaps I am helping you because I believe you. Or perhaps because I dislike men who throw women into storms. Or perhaps simply because I have the means to help and saw no reason not to. Kong Seojin's expression remained neutral. Does my motivation matter, Miss Harris? It might. Then consider this. I am offering you 3 or 4 days of safety while you recover and plan your next move. You can accept this offer and give yourself time to heal and think clearly. Or you can leave now in your weakened condition with no clear plan and few resources. Which choice serves you better? Put that way, the answer was obvious. But accepting help meant owing someone, and owing someone meant vulnerability. Vanessa had learned that lesson too many times. I don't want to owe you anything, she said firmly. If I stay, it's because you offered. Not because I'm obligated to repay you in any way. Agreed. And if I decide to leave before the 3 days are up, you'll let me go without argument? You are not a prisoner here, Miss Harris. You are a guest. You may leave whenever you choose. Vanessa searched his face for any sign of deception, any hint that this was a trap. But all she saw was a man who seemed oddly sincere in his offer, despite the obvious danger that surrounded him like an invisible cloak. Okay, she said finally. 3 days. I'll stay for 3 days. And in return, I'll follow your rules and answer your questions honestly. Then we have an agreement. Kang Seojin moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Miss Harris. The man who did this to you. What is his name? Jason Graham. Why? Curiosity. But there was something in his tone that suggested it was more than curiosity, something that made Vanessa think that maybe Jason Graham should be worried about more than just karma. Rest now. We will speak again when you're stronger. He left as quietly as he'd entered, leaving Vanessa alone with her thoughts and a growing suspicion that accepting Kang Seojin's help might be the most dangerous decision she'd ever made. But also, possibly, the only decision that could lead to something better than the life she'd been living. 3 days. She could survive 3 days in a criminal's house. She'd survived worse. The question was whether she'd want to leave when those 3 days were up. The next day passed in a strange kind of limbo. Vanessa stayed mostly in her room, resting as Mrs. Park had instructed, venturing out only to eat meals in the enormous kitchen under the older woman's watchful eye. The house was even more impressive in daylight, all clean lines and expensive taste, the kind of place that spoke of serious money and serious power. She saw no sign of Kong Seo-jin during the day. Mrs. Park explained that he rarely appeared before evening, that his business kept him occupied until late hours. Vanessa didn't ask what business, remembering her promise not to pry. But she was intensely curious about the man who'd saved her life and then disappeared like a ghost. She spent her time reading on an e-reader Mrs. Park had provided, looking out at the snow-covered landscape and thinking about what came next. Her phone was charged now, but she'd turned it off after seeing 17 missed calls from Jason. She wasn't ready to deal with him yet. Maybe she never would be. On the second evening, Vanessa was sitting in a small library she'd discovered, thumbing through a book on architecture, when Kang Seo-jin appeared in the doorway. "You found my collection," he said, startling her. Vanessa looked up, closing the book carefully. He was dressed more casually tonight, black pants and a dark gray sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to be. He looked tired, she noticed, lines of stress around his eyes that hadn't been there during their first meeting. Mrs. Park said I could explore the common areas. If this is off limits, I apologize. It is not off limits. He entered the room, moving to a cabinet along the wall. Would you like a drink? I don't drink much. Neither do I usually. But some nights require it. He poured himself something amber from a crystal decanter, then looked at her questioningly. Just water, please. He poured her a glass from a pitcher, ice clinking softly, and brought both drinks over. He sat in the chair across from hers, a respectful distance maintained. Everything about his body language suggested control, awareness, the kind of constant vigilance that came from living in a dangerous world. How are you feeling? He asked. Better. Much better, actually. Mrs. Park has been taking excellent care of me. She is very good at what she does. He took a small sip of his drink. Have you given thought to what you will do after you leave here? Some thought, yes. I'll need to find my car first, then a place to stay. Something cheap while I save up for a proper apartment. My jobs will probably still be there. I'll rebuild. You have done this before. It wasn't a question, but Vanessa answered anyway. I've rebuilt my life more times than I can count. I'm good at it by now. That is not something to be proud of, Miss Harris. It is something to be angry about. His voice held an edge she hadn't heard before. You should not have to constantly rebuild what others tear down. The unexpected empathy caught her off guard. She'd been expecting judgment or pity, the two responses she usually got when people learned about her background. But Kang Seo-jin seemed genuinely angry on her behalf, which was oddly touching. Anger doesn't change anything, she said quietly. I learned that a long time ago. You just accept what is and move forward. Acceptance can be survival, but it can also be surrender. He set his glass down. Tell me about yourself, Miss Harris. I am curious about the woman who nearly died at my gates. There's not much to tell. I grew up in foster care, aged out at 18, worked my way through community college, currently working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Or I was until 2 nights ago. She shrugged. Pretty standard story for someone like me. Someone like you? Someone from nowhere. Someone with no family, no safety net, no advantages. Someone who has to fight for every single thing they get. Kang Seo-jin was quiet for a moment, studying her with those dark, assessing eyes. I think you're underestimating yourself. Fighting for everything you have is not a weakness. It is strength. Most people who are born into comfort have no idea what strength really means. Were you born into comfort? No. The single word carried weight, years of history compressed into 2 letters. I also came from nowhere. I also had to fight for everything. The difference is that I learned to fight in ways that ensured I would never have to rebuild again. Legal ways. His smile was sharp. You promised not to ask too many questions about my business. I promised to follow your rules. I never promised not to be curious. Vanessa met his gaze steadily. But you're right. Your business is your business. I don't need to know the details to know that you're someone powerful and probably dangerous. Does that frighten you? Yes, she admitted. But a lot of things frighten me. I've learned to function despite fear. That is wise. He picked up his glass again, rolling it between his palms. Fear is useful. It keeps you alert, alive. It is only when fear paralyzes that it becomes a problem. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the only sound the soft ticking of a clock on the mantel. Vanessa found herself relaxing despite her better judgment. There was something about Kang Seo-jin that was oddly calming, even though everything about him screamed danger. Maybe it was the directness, the lack of pretense. Or maybe it was just that after years of dealing with Jason's passive aggression and manipulation, straightforward danger felt refreshing. Your ex-boyfriend, Kang Seo-jin said eventually. Jason Graham. Have you spoken to him since that night? No. He's called repeatedly, but I haven't answered. What do you think he wants? I don't know. Maybe to make sure I'm not dead. Maybe to tell me it's safe to come get the rest of my things. Maybe to yell at me some more. Vanessa's joy tightened. I don't really care what he wants anymore. Good. The approval in his voice was clear. Men like him do not deserve second chances. Have you ever thrown someone out into a storm, Mr. Kong? Never. I have done many things I am not proud of, Miss Harris, but I have never harmed someone weaker than myself without cause. And I have never harmed a woman, period. His expression hardened. That is a line I do not cross. What about the things you're not proud of? What line do you cross? Many. But always against those who can defend themselves. Always against those who chose to enter my world. He leaned forward slightly. You did not choose to be thrown into that storm. You did not choose to collapse at my gates. You are an innocent in a game you never agreed to play. That makes you untouchable in my world. But I'm staying in your house. Doesn't that make me part of your world by default? Only if you choose to be. Right now, you are a guest. Nothing more, nothing less. When you leave here, you will walk away clean, with no obligations and no connections to me or my business. I give you my word on that. His word. Vanessa wondered what that was worth in his world. Probably everything, given the way he said it, with absolute certainty and something that sounded almost like honor. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. For saving me, for taking care of me, for not expecting anything in return. That's rare. It should not be rare. It should be basic human decency. Kang Seo-jin stood, draining the last of his drink. I have work to attend to, but feel free to use this library whenever you wish. Consider it yours while you are here. He left without another word, and Vanessa sat alone with her thoughts and a growing realization that Kang Seo-jin was nothing like any man she'd ever met. He was dangerous, yes. Criminal, almost certainly. But he operated by a code, by rules that made sense in their own twisted way. And he'd shown her more respect in 2 days than Jason had in 3 years. That night, Vanessa dreamed of storms and locked doors and hands that pushed her into the cold. But in her dream, when she fell, someone caught her. Someone whose face she couldn't quite see, but whose presence felt solid, certain, safe. She woke to Mrs. Park gently shaking her shoulder. Miss Harris. I am sorry to wake you, but there is someone at the gate asking for you. Vanessa sat up, groggy and confused. What? Who? A man named Jason Graham. He says he is your boyfriend and demands to see you. All the warmth drained from Vanessa's body. How did he find me? I do not know. But Mr. Kang is dealing with him now. He wanted me to ask if you wish to see this man or if you wish to have him sent away. The old Vanessa, the one from 3 days ago, would have felt obligated to face Jason, would have felt guilty for making him worry, would have tried to smooth things over, would have taken on the burden of his emotions along with her own. But something had shifted in the past 2 days. Something had cracked and reformed differently. Send him away, Vanessa said firmly. I don't want to see him. Not now, not ever. Mrs. Park smiled, the expression fierce and approving. I will tell Mr. Kong. He will handle it. 20 minutes later, showered and dressed, Vanessa went downstairs to find Kang Seo-jin in his study, the door open. He looked up as she approached, waving her inside. Your ex-boyfriend is persistent, he said. He threatened to call the police, claiming I am holding you against your will. What did you tell him? That if he contacts the police, they will find a willing guest and no evidence of wrongdoing. I also told him that if he continues to harass you, he will find himself with problems far worse than a wounded ego. Vanessa should have been disturbed by the implied threat. Instead, she felt something closer to relief. Thank you. I know I should probably face him eventually, but I'm not ready. You do not owe him anything, including closure. Kang Seo-jin leaned back in his chair. But he will not stop easily. Men like him believe they own whatever they touch. He will keep coming back until he accepts that you are beyond his reach. What do you suggest? Move forward. Find a new place to live, one he knows nothing about. Change your phone number. Cut every tie that connects you to him. Make it clear through your actions that the relationship is over and cannot be resurrected. It was good advice, practical and clear. But it also required resources Vanessa wasn't sure she had. That's easier said than done when you're broke. Which brings me to my next point. Kang Seo-jin opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out an envelope. I have a job offer for you. Vanessa tensed. What kind of job? Nothing illegal, if that is your concern. Mrs. Park is excellent at managing my household, but she is getting older and needs help. I also require someone to organize my legitimate business files, handle scheduling, manage correspondence. Basic administrative work combined with household management. The pay is generous, the hours are flexible, and it comes with a room here if you need it. You want me to work for you? I am offering you an option. You do not have to accept. But it would solve several of your immediate problems while giving you time to plan your next move properly. It was too convenient, too perfect. Vanessa's instincts screamed trap. Why would you offer me a job? You don't know anything about my skills or qualifications. I know you are intelligent, resourceful, and capable of surviving situations that would break most people. I know you keep your word and follow rules when they are clearly stated. I know Mrs. Park likes you, and she is an excellent judge of character. He pushed the envelope across the desk. The offer is genuine, Miss Harris. But I will not be offended if you decline. Vanessa stared at the envelope, her mind racing. This could be her way out, a stable income and housing while she rebuilt her life properly instead of desperately. But it also meant staying in the orbit of a dangerous man, becoming part of his world in a way that might be hard to escape from later. Can I think about it? Of course. You have until you are ready to leave here. No pressure, no expectations. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with a frown. I apologize, but I have a situation that requires my attention. We will speak later. He left quickly, and Vanessa was alone with the envelope and a decision that felt far more significant than a simple job offer. She opened it. Inside was a contract, clearly written and surprisingly straightforward. The salary listed made her eyes widen. It was more than she'd made at both her jobs combined. The benefits were even better. Health insurance, dental, a retirement plan. Things she'd never had access to before. It was tempting. God, it was so tempting. But was she willing to work for a criminal to get it? Was she willing to stay in this house, in this world, where danger lurked beneath every polished surface? Vanessa thought about Jason, about the way he'd thrown her out like garbage. Thought about all the years she'd spent scraping by, working herself exhausted for minimum wage and no benefits. Thought about the alternative, which was going back to that struggle with even less than she'd had before. Sometimes the dangerous choice was the smart choice. Sometimes the monster who offered you shelter was better than the one who threw you into the storm. She folded the contract carefully and tucked it back into the envelope. She'd think about it. She'd weigh her options. And maybe, just maybe, she'd take the risk. Because Vanessa Harris was tired of just surviving. Maybe it was time to see what living actually felt like. That evening, Vanessa found Kong Seo-jin in the library again, reading what looked like a business report. He glanced up as she entered, his expression neutral, but his eyes sharp, assessing. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said, staying near the doorway. "And? I have questions." "I expected you would." He set aside his papers and gave her his full attention. "Ask." Vanessa moved into the room, perching on the edge of the sofa. "You said the job is nothing illegal. But you're involved in illegal activities, aren't you?" "Yes." The honesty was startling. "What kind of activities?" "The kind I will not discuss with someone who is not part of my organization. If you take this job, you will occasionally see or overhear things. I expect you to keep those things to yourself. But you will never be asked to participate in anything illegal, and you will never be held responsible for my actions." "How can you guarantee that?" "Because I keep my business and my household separate. The people who work here, Mrs. Park, my driver, my chef, they are not involved in my other enterprises. They are civilians, and they are protected as such." "Protected from what?" Kong Seo-jin was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I have enemies, Miss Harris. Men who would harm anyone connected to me if they thought it would give them an advantage. But I have made it clear that my household staff are off limits. Anyone who touches them dies. That protection has held for 8 years now." The casual way he mentioned killing should have terrified her. Instead, Vanessa found herself oddly reassured. At least he was honest about the danger. At least he wasn't pretending his world was safe. What if I see something I can't ignore? Something that goes against my conscience? Then you quit and walk away. I will not stop you or punish you for leaving. But I will expect you to keep what you have seen to yourself. That is the price of the protection I offer. And if I can't keep quiet? If what I see is so bad I feel I have to report it." His expression hardened slightly. "Then I would advise you not to take this job. Because that would be a violation of trust, and while I do not harm innocents, I do deal with threats to my operation and the people in it." "Fair enough." He was laying out the terms clearly, giving her the information she needed to make an informed choice. No manipulation, no pretty lies, just cold reality. "Okay," Vanessa said slowly. "Let me ask you something else. Why do you really want to hire me?" The truth, not the convenient answer about needing help. Kong Seo-jin leaned back, a slight smile playing at his lips. "You want honesty? Fine. I see something in you that interests me. Not romantically," he added quickly, "but as a person. You have survived things that should have broken you. You have maintained your integrity despite having every reason to become bitter and hard. You refuse to be a victim even when you have every right to claim that identity. Those qualities are rare. I respect them. And yes, perhaps I am curious to see what you might become if you were given actual resources and support instead of constant obstacles. So I'm a project to you? No. You are a person who deserves better than what life has given you. This job is simply an opportunity. What you do with it is entirely up to you." Vanessa studied him, searching for any sign of deception or hidden agenda. But all she saw was a man who seemed genuinely sincere, despite the danger that surrounded him like a second skin. "I need to know one more thing," she said. "Have you ever hurt anyone who didn't deserve it?" "That depends on your definition of deserve." Kong Seojin's voice was steady, unflinching. "I have hurt people who threatened me and mine. I have hurt people who broke agreements. I have hurt people who harmed innocents. But I have never hurt someone simply because I could, and I have never hurt someone who posed no threat. I am not a good man, Miss Harris. But I am not a monster either. I operate within a code, even if that code would not be understood or accepted by the outside world." "What about Jason? What about him? Will you hurt him? For what he did to me?" Kong Seojin's expression was impossible to read. "Do you want me to?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Vanessa thought about Jason, about the years of slow erosion, the way he'd made her doubt herself, the final cruelty of throwing her into a storm to die. Part of her wanted him to suffer. Part of her wanted someone to make him understand what he'd done. But a larger part of her just wanted to move on. "No," she said finally. "I don't want you to hurt him. I just want him to leave me alone." "Then that is what will happen. I will make it clear to Mr. Graham that you are under my protection and that any further contact with you will have severe consequences. He will leave you alone." Just like that. Just like that. Men like Jason Graham are cowards at heart. They prey on those they perceive as weak. When faced with actual power, they fold. Vanessa believed him. She'd seen it herself, the way Jason had backed down when faced with anyone who wouldn't tolerate his behavior. He was only dangerous to those who couldn't fight back. "I'll take the job," she heard herself saying. "On a trial basis. 1 month. If it doesn't work out, either of us can end it with no hard feelings." King Seojin nodded slowly. "Acceptable. Mrs. Park will train you starting tomorrow. Your room will remain the one you are currently using. Your salary begins immediately. Welcome to my household, Miss Harris." He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Vanessa shook it. His grip was firm, warm, certain. The handshake of someone who kept his word. "Thank you," she said. "I won't let you down. I know you will not. But more importantly, do not let yourself down. This is your opportunity, Miss Harris. Make sure you use it to build something that cannot be taken from you." As Vanessa left the library, heading back to what was now officially her room, she felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. It took her a moment to identify it. Hope. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt actual hope that her life might become something more than constant survival. That she might find a place where she could not just exist, but actually thrive. It was a dangerous feeling, hope. It could be crushed so easily. But as Vanessa looked out at the snow-covered landscape from her window, she decided to allow herself this one small luxury. Maybe the storm that had nearly killed her had actually been the beginning of something better. Maybe sometimes you had to lose everything to find out what you were really capable of becoming. And maybe, just maybe, the most dangerous man she'd ever met was actually the safest choice she could make. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of learning and adapting. Mrs. Park proved to be a patient but exacting teacher, showing Vanessa the rhythms of the household, the preferences of their employer, the unspoken rules that governed daily life. Kong Seojin kept unusual hours, often sleeping during the day and conducting business at night. The house saw a steady stream of visitors, men in expensive suits who spoke in low voices and never stayed long. Vanessa learned to be invisible during these meetings, to pass through rooms without being noticed, to hear without listening. She learned which rooms were off limits and which doors should never be opened. She learned that Kong Seojin valued efficiency, honesty, and discretion above all else. She also learned that he was surprisingly kind in small ways. He remembered how she took her coffee. He noticed when she was tired and told her to rest. He asked about her day with genuine interest. When she mentioned missing her favorite type of tea, it appeared in the kitchen the next morning. It was confusing, this contrast between the dangerous businessman and the considerate employer. Vanessa kept expecting the other shoe to drop, kept waiting for the moment when he would reveal what he really wanted from her. But that moment never came. He treated her with consistent respect, maintaining clear boundaries, never crossing the line between professional and personal. 2 weeks after she'd started working, Vanessa was organizing files in Kang Seojin's legitimate office when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Vanessa. Jason's voice sent ice through her veins. We need to talk. No, we don't. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I have nothing to say to you. You can't hide in that criminal's house forever. People are talking, Vanessa. Do you know what they're saying about you? About us. I don't care what they're saying. And I'm not hiding. I'm living my life. By working for a mobster? Jason's voice turned ugly. Is that what you've become? His whore. The crude insult should have hurt. Instead, it just made Vanessa angry. Don't call me again, Jason. We're done. We've been done since you threw me out into a blizzard and locked the door. I made a mistake. I was angry. Kala and it didn't work out. I want you to come home. Home. As if that house had ever been her home. As if he hadn't made it clear that she was just a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. I don't have a home with you anymore. I don't want one. Leave me alone. Vanessa, please. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It was wrong, what I did. I know that now. Just come back. We can work this out. No. You're really choosing him over me? A criminal over someone who actually loves you. You don't love me, Jason. You never did. You loved the idea of me, the project of fixing me, the ego boost of being with someone who needed you. But you never actually loved me as a person. Vanessa was surprised by how calm she felt, how clear everything suddenly was. Kang Seojin has shown me more respect in 2 weeks than you did in 3 years. So yes, I'm choosing this life over what you're offering. Because at least here, I know exactly where I stand. You'll regret this. Jason's voice turned cold, familiar. When his world comes crashing down, when you're caught up in whatever illegal shit he's involved in, you'll regret choosing him over me. Maybe, but I'll never regret leaving you. She hung up before he could respond, her hands shaking slightly. It felt good, standing up to him. It felt powerful. But it also felt risky, like she'd just painted a target on her back. Problem? Kang Seojin's voice came from the doorway. She hadn't heard him approach. Jason called. He wants me to come back to him. And what did you tell him? No. Emphatically and finally no. Kang Seojin moved into the room, his expression thoughtful. How did he get your new number? I don't know. I changed it like you suggested, but maybe he has connections. Or maybe he's just persistent. Persistence becomes harassment. We need to address this more directly. He pulled out his phone, typing quickly. I will have one of my associates make it very clear to Mr. Graham that his attention is unwelcome. If he contacts you again after that, there will be consequences. I don't want you to hurt him, Vanessa said quickly. I will not hurt him. I will simply make him understand that his behavior has costs. Sometimes that is enough. Kang Seojin looked at her carefully. You're shaking. I'm fine. Just adrenaline. Come. Sit. He guided her to a chair, then poured her a glass of water from the bottle on his desk. Confronting the past is never easy, even when you know you are making the right choice. Vanessa took the water gratefully, sipping slowly. He called me your whore. Something dangerous flashed in Kang Seojin's eyes. He said what? It doesn't matter. It's just words. Words have power. And that word was chosen specifically to demean you, to make you feel ashamed of a choice that requires no shame. His voice was ice. I think perhaps Mr. Graham needs a more serious lesson about respect. Please don't. I just want him to go away. Violence will only make this messier. Kang Seojin was silent for a long moment, clearly wrestling with his instincts. Finally, he nodded. Very well. But if he contacts you again, if he shows up here, if he does anything to make you uncomfortable, you will tell me immediately. Understood. Understood. Good. He moved toward the door, then paused. Miss Harris? You made the right choice. Whatever happens, know that. After he left, Vanessa sat alone with her thoughts and her water glass and the strange realization that somewhere along the way, this house had started to feel more like home than anywhere she'd lived in years. That the man who scared most people was the first person who'd made her feel truly safe. That maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she needed to be. 3 days later, Jason showed up at the gates. Vanessa was in the kitchen with Mrs. Park, learning to make kimchi jjigae when the intercom buzzed. Mrs. Park checked the camera feed and frowned. It is your ex-boyfriend. He is demanding to see you. Don't let him in, Vanessa said immediately, her heart rate spiking. Please, just send him away. Mr. Kang is in a meeting, but I will alert him. Mrs. Park pressed a button on the intercom. This is private property. You need to leave. Jason's voice crackled through, angry and slurred. He'd been drinking. I'm not leaving until I talk to Vanessa. She's in there, I know she is. Vanessa, come out here and face me like an adult instead of hiding behind your sugar daddy's gates. I am calling security, Mrs. Park said calmly. You have 1 minute to leave before they remove you. Fuck your security. Vanessa, I know you can hear me. This is ridiculous. You're throwing away 3 years over one mistake. Vanessa moved to the intercom, her hands trembling, but her voice steady. Jason, go home. We have nothing to say to each other. Are you sleeping with him? Is that what this is? You always claim to be so independent, so above trading yourself for money, but here you are, living in a mansion, working for a criminal. You're exactly what I always suspected you were. A user. A gold digger. The words stung, not because they were true, but because they revealed just how little Jason had ever understood her. She'd never wanted his money. She'd wanted his respect, his partnership, his love. And he'd never been capable of giving any of those things. Leave now, or I will have you arrested for trespassing. Kang Seojin's voice cut through, cold and absolute. He'd appeared behind Vanessa, his expression dark with barely contained rage. There he is, the criminal playing hero. You think I'm scared of you? You think I don't know what you are? I could go to the police right now. Tell them all about your operation. You could try. Kang Seojin's voice was dangerously quiet. But you would find that I have excellent lawyers and absolutely no connection to any illegal activities, at least none that could be proven in court. You, however, would find yourself facing defamation charges, harassment charges, and possibly stalking charges. Is that really how you want this to end, Mr. Graham? There was silence on the other end of the intercom. Vanessa could almost hear Jason's alcohol-soaked brain trying to process the threat, trying to decide if it was worth pushing further. Vanessa. Jason's voice had turned pleading now, the anger giving way to desperation. Please. I love you. I made a mistake. Don't throw us away. You threw us away when you locked me out in a storm, Jason. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Don't come back here. Don't call me. Don't contact me at all. We're done. She walked away from the intercom before he could respond, her whole body shaking. Mrs. Park immediately put a comforting arm around her shoulders, guiding her to a chair. Kang Seojin spoke quietly into a phone, presumably calling security, then joined them in the kitchen. "He will not be allowed through the gates again," he said, his voice gentler now. "And I will have someone ensure he makes it home safely. He is too drunk to be driving." "You're going to help him get home?" Vanessa was surprised. "I am ensuring he does not kill himself or someone else on the road." "That is not compassion, Miss Harris. That is liability management." But there was something in his eyes that suggested it might be a little bit of compassion too. "Are you all right?" "I don't know. That was harder than I thought it would be. Ending things is always hard, even when you know it is necessary." Kang Seojin pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "You handled it well. You were clear, direct, and firm. He cannot claim uncertainty about your intentions now." "He'll keep trying," Vanessa said quietly. "He's not the type to accept rejection easily." "Then I will make the consequences of continuing increasingly unpleasant for him. Not through violence," he added, seeing her expression. "But there are many ways to make someone understand they are not welcome. Jason Graham will learn this lesson, I assure you." Mrs. Park set a cup of tea in front of Vanessa, the gesture maternal and comforting. "Drink. The worst is over now. He has seen that you are protected and that his behavior will not be tolerated. Most bullies back down when faced with real opposition." Vanessa hoped she was right. She was so tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of waiting for Jason to make her life difficult. She just wanted to move forward, to build something new without the constant weight of the past dragging her back. "Thank you," she said to both of them, "for having my back, for not making me face him alone." "You are part of this household now," Mrs. Park said firmly. "We protect our own." "Indeed." Kang Seojin stood, straightening his suit jacket. "I need to return to my meeting, but if you need anything, tell Mrs. Park and she will find me." "You are safe here, Miss Harris." "That is not an empty promise." After he left, Vanessa sat with her tea and tried to stop shaking. She'd stood up to Jason. She'd made her position clear. She'd chosen her new life over her old one, firmly and finally. It should feel empowering. And it did, partly. But it was also terrifying, burning that last bridge, committing fully to a path she still didn't completely understand. "You did well," Mrs. Park said softly. "I know it does not feel like it now, but you did. Standing up for yourself is never easy. Does it get easier? In some ways yes, in some ways no. But it does get more natural. You will learn to set boundaries without fear, to value yourself without apology. Mr. King will teach you this, whether he knows it or not." "How do you mean?" Mrs. Park smiled slightly. "Mr. Kong demands respect, but he also gives it freely to those who earn it. He will never ask you to be less than you are. In his presence, you will learn what it means to stand in your full power. It is one of his gifts, though he would never call it that." Vanessa thought about that, about the way Kang Seojin treated her like an equal despite the vast differences in their positions and power. About the way he listened when she spoke, considered her opinions, respected her boundaries. It was such a stark contrast to Jason, who had always tried to make her smaller, more manageable, less herself. Maybe Mrs. Park was right. Maybe in choosing to stay here, in choosing to work for a dangerous man instead of returning to a safe one, she was actually choosing herself for the first time in her life. It was a strange thought. But then again, her entire life had become strange in the weeks since she'd nearly frozen to death at these gates. Strange, but also more alive than she'd felt in years. That night, unable to sleep, Vanessa found herself back in the library. She was surprised to discover Kang Seojin already there, standing by the window, looking out at the city lights in the distance. He didn't turn when she entered, but his voice acknowledged her presence. "Trouble sleeping?" Too much on my mind. Vanessa moved to the bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines without really seeing them. I keep replaying the conversation with Jason, wondering if I said the right things. Wondering if he'll actually leave me alone now. He will. I made certain of that this evening. Something in his tone made Vanessa look at him sharply. What did you do? Nothing violent, as promised. But I had a conversation with Mr. Graham. A very clear conversation about consequences and expectations. He understands now that continuing to pursue you would be detrimental to his career, his reputation, and his general well-being. You threatened him. I informed him of reality. There is a difference. Kong Sia-jin finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. He will not bother you again. You have my word. Vanessa should probably be upset about the implied intimidation, but mostly she just felt relieved. Jason was finally, truly out of her life. She could move forward without constantly looking over her shoulder. Thank you, she said quietly. I know I said I didn't want you to get involved, but I appreciate it. I appreciate you. You do not need to thank me for basic decency, Miss Harris. Vanessa. You can call me Vanessa. We've moved past formality at this point. He smiled slightly. Vanessa, then. And you may call me Sia-jin if you wish. The use of first names felt significant, like crossing an invisible line. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the night settling around them like a blanket. Can I ask you something personal? Vanessa ventured. You can ask. I may not answer. Fair enough. Why do you live like this? With all the security, the isolation, the constant vigilance? Is it worth it, whatever you do? Sia-jin was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. That depends on your definition of worth. I built this life from nothing. I came to this country with nothing, knowing no one, speaking barely any English. I was young, angry, and desperate. The legitimate world had no place for someone like me. So I found another path. The criminal one. Yes, I learned to navigate systems that existed in shadows. I learned to be useful to the right people and dangerous to the wrong ones. I built power carefully, methodically. And yes, I live in isolation because power attracts enemies. But I also have resources, influence, and the ability to protect those I choose to protect. Is it worth it? Ask me again in 20 years. Do you ever wish you'd chosen differently? Every day. And never. He moved away from the window, settling into one of the leather chairs. The life I have is not the life I wanted. But it is the life I built, and I own every choice that led me here. I will not pretend to be a victim of circumstance. Vanessa understood that sentiment deeply. She'd never wanted to be someone who survived through others' charity, who built her identity around being rescued. But circumstances had pushed her into exactly that position. The difference was that Sia-jin had chosen his path with open eyes, while hers had been chosen for her by someone else's cruelty. I don't want to be someone who needs protecting, she said, voicing the thought that had been circling her mind for days. I don't want to be another responsibility for you. You are not a responsibility. You are an employee who happens to require some additional security considerations. There is a difference. Sia-jin gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Talk to me. What is really bothering you about today? Vanessa sat, drawing her knees up under her. I guess I'm struggling with the fact that I needed help. That I couldn't handle Jason on my own. That I'm safer here with you than I ever was trying to make it on my own. It feels like admitting defeat. Accepting help is not defeat. It is wisdom. You spent years trying to be completely self-sufficient, and where did it get you? Living with a man who didn't value you, working yourself to exhaustion, with no safety net and no support system. That is not strength, Vanessa. That is martyrdom. The blunt assessment stung because it was accurate. She had been martyring herself to the god of independence, sacrificing her own well-being to prove she didn't need anyone. And it had nearly killed her. "So, what do I do instead?" she asked. "How do I accept help without losing myself?" You build a foundation that cannot be taken away. You save money. You develop skills. You create options for yourself. You accept support while building towards self-sufficiency, not as a replacement for it. Seojin leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "I am offering you opportunity, not a cage. Use this time to become stronger, more capable, more prepared. And when you are ready, if you choose to leave and build something entirely your own, I will support that decision." "You would really let me go?" "Just like that." "Why would I not?" "I do not collect people, Vanessa. I offer them choices. What they do with those choices is up to them." It was such a radical departure from every relationship she'd had before. Jason had collected her like an interesting object, then discarded her when she didn't perform as expected. Her foster families had tolerated her as an obligation. Even her friendships had been transactional, based on what she could offer rather than who she was. But Seojin was offering something different. Respect without conditions. Support without strings. Protection without possession. It was almost too good to believe. "What do you get out of this?" she asked bluntly. "Out of helping me?" "Because nobody does something for nothing." "Perhaps I like who I am when I am helping you," Seojin said quietly. "Perhaps in a life full of difficult choices and moral compromises, being able to do one purely good thing is valuable to me. Or perhaps I simply recognize a kindred spirit, someone who has fought for everything they have, and I want to see what you become when the fight is not quite so hard." "A kindred spirit," Vanessa repeated. "Is that what we are?" "I think so, yes. We both know what it is to be underestimated. To survive when we should have failed. To build something from nothing. The difference is that I had opportunities you did not. This is my chance to level that field, even just a little." They talked for another hour, the conversation ranging from philosophy to favorite foods to childhood dreams that had died slow deaths. Vanessa learned that Seojin had wanted to be an architect before circumstance pushed him toward crime. That he loved classical music but hated opera. That he had a sister back in Korea he hadn't seen in 15 years because returning home would be too dangerous. In turn, she told him about her love of old movies, her secret dream of going back to school for a real degree, her fear of storms that had only intensified since that terrible night. He listened without judgment, asking questions that showed he was actually interested in her answers. When Vanessa finally went back to her room, the sky was beginning to lighten with dawn. She felt lighter somehow, like talking had released a pressure valve she hadn't known was building. For the first time since Jason had thrown her out, she felt like maybe, eventually, she would be okay. More than okay. Maybe she would be happy. The weeks turned into months. Winter gave way to early spring, the snow melting to reveal new growth beneath. Vanessa settled into her role with increasing confidence, managing Seojin's schedule, organizing his files, helping Mrs. Park with household management. She was good at it, she realized. Good at creating order from chaos, at anticipating needs, at making things run smoothly. Her savings account grew steadily. She opened a retirement fund for the first time in her life. She started taking online classes toward her degree. She learned to cook Korean food from Mrs. Park, learned basic self-defense from Seojin's security team, learned that she was capable of so much more than she'd ever given herself credit for. Jason stopped calling. According to mutual acquaintances she'd kept in touch with, he'd moved away, taken a job in another city. Kala had apparently dumped him after discovering he was broke, having spent most of his money maintaining a lifestyle he couldn't actually afford. The karma was satisfying, Vanessa had to admit. But more importantly, she found she didn't think about Jason much anymore. He'd become a chapter in her past, a lesson learned, but no longer a wound that ached. She'd survived him. More than that, she'd transcended him. Her relationship with Seojin evolved into something she couldn't quite define. They weren't friends, exactly. The power dynamic was too unequal for that. But they weren't just employer and employee either. They talked most evenings, conversations that ranged from superficial to deeply personal. He asked her opinion on business decisions, valued her input, treated her insights with genuine respect. She learned to read his moods, to know when he needed space and when he needed company. She learned that he was far more kind than his reputation suggested, far more principled than anyone would believe. He had lines he wouldn't cross, people he protected fiercely, a code of honor that made sense even when it didn't align with conventional morality. She also learned that she was developing feelings that went beyond professional respect or gratitude. The way her heart rate picked up when he entered a room. The way she found excuses to stay up late in case he wanted to talk. The way his rare smiles made her feel like she'd won something precious. It was dangerous, these feelings. Seojin had been nothing but appropriate with her. He'd never crossed a line, never indicated he saw her as anything other than a valued employee. Getting emotionally entangled with her employer, especially one involved in criminal activities, was possibly the worst decision she could make. But hearts didn't always listen to logic. It was a Tuesday evening in early April when everything shifted. Vanessa was in Seojin's office, organizing quarterly reports, when raised voices echoed from downstairs. She froze, listening. Seojin had a meeting tonight with some business associates, but it sounded like things were getting heated. She moved to the door, uncertain whether to investigate or stay put. The rule was to stay out of his business dealings. But the voices were getting louder, angrier. She heard something crash. Then a gunshot. Vanessa's blood turned to ice. Without thinking, she grabbed her phone and ran toward the stairs. She had to know if Seojin was okay. She had to know. She made it halfway down when Mrs. Park appeared, grabbing her arm. No, come with me. Now. But Seojin is handling it. We go to the safe room. Now, Vanessa. Mrs. Park's tone brooked no argument. She pulled Vanessa through a door that led to the basement, then through another door that was reinforced steel. Inside was a small room with monitors showing various parts of the house, communication equipment, and supplies. A panic room. On the monitors, Vanessa could see the living room. Seojin stood perfectly calm, facing three men. One of them was on the floor, clutching his leg and bleeding. Seojin held a gun, but it was pointed down now, relaxed at his side. He was talking, his voice too quiet to hear through the monitors, but his body language was clear. He was in complete control. What happened? Vanessa asked, unable to tear her eyes from the screen. A disagreement that escalated. Nothing Mr. Kong cannot handle. Mrs. Park checked the other monitors, ensuring the property was secure. This is why we have protocols. This is why you stay away from meetings. Is he going to be okay? He is always okay. This is his world, Vanessa. He navigates it like breathing. They watched as Seojin made a phone call. Within minutes, several men arrived, clearly his security team. They removed the injured man, presumably to get medical attention. The other two men left looking shaken but unharmed. Seojin holstered his gun and ran a hand through his hair, the only sign of stress he'd shown. Then he looked directly at the camera, as if he knew they were watching. He nodded once, a signal that it was safe. Mrs. Park led them back upstairs. Seojin was waiting in his office, pouring himself a drink. He looked up as they entered, his expression softening slightly when he saw Vanessa. "You're all right?" he asked. "Am I all right?" "You're the one who just shot someone. In the leg, not fatally. He will survive with nothing more than a scar and a lesson about attempting to cheat me." Seojin took a sip of his drink. "I am sorry you witnessed that. It should not have happened in the house." "What did happen?" "Business. The kind I do not discuss with you." But his voice was gentler than usual, recognizing that she'd been frightened. "Are you upset?" Vanessa considered the question honestly. She'd just watched him shoot a man without hesitation, without visible emotion. It should terrify her. It should make her want to run. But instead, all she'd felt was worry for his safety, relief that he was unharmed. "I'm not upset," she said slowly. "I'm concerned that you could have been hurt. But I'm not upset about what you did." Something shifted in Seojin's expression, a crack in his usual control. You should be horrified. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Is that wrong?" "I do not know." He set down his glass and moved closer to her. "Vanessa, you need to understand something. This is who I am. This is what I do. Tonight was mild. There have been worse nights, and there will be worse nights to come. If you stay here, you will eventually see things that cannot be unseen. You will know things that cannot be unknown. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know I don't want to leave. I know that whatever danger exists in this house, I feel safer here than I ever did in the world outside." That is fear talking. The trauma of what Jason did to you. Maybe. Or maybe it's clarity. Vanessa met his eyes steadily. "You've never lied to me. You've never pretended to be something you're not. You're a criminal, yes. You do things that are illegal and violent. But you've also saved my life, given me opportunities one never would have had, and treated me with more respect than most so-called good men ever did. So no, I'm not horrified. I'm grateful." "Grateful," Seojin repeated, his voice low. "You should not be grateful to someone like me. But I am." They stood close enough that Vanessa could see the faint scar along his jaw, could smell his cologne mixed with gunpowder. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. She knew she should step back, should maintain the professional distance they'd so carefully constructed. But she couldn't make herself move. "Vanessa." Her name on his lips sounded like a warning and a prayer. "This is dangerous. I know. I am not a good man. I know that too. I cannot offer you the life you deserve. The safe, normal life you should have. I don't want safe and normal. I tried that. It nearly killed me." She took a breath, gathering courage. "I want honest. I want real. I want someone who sees me for who I actually am, not who they want me to be. And that's you, Seojin. For better or worse, that's you." For a long moment, he just looked at her, something warring in his dark eyes. Then he reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face gently. His touch was careful, reverent, like she was something precious that might break. "If we do this," he said quietly, "there is no going back. You will be part of my world completely. My enemies will become your enemies. My dangers will become your dangers. I can protect you, but I cannot make you safe. Do you understand the difference?" "I understand." "And you still want this?" Instead of answering, Vanessa rose on her toes and kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, a question. He responded by pulling her closer, deepening the kiss, answering with his own question and certainty and need. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Seojin rested his forehead against hers. "You are going to be the death of me," he murmured. "Probably. But what a way to go." He laughed, the sound startled and genuine. It transformed his face, making him look younger, less burdened. Vanessa realized she'd never heard him really laugh before, and she wanted to hear it again and again. This changes everything, he said. I know. We take this slowly. We do this right. I will not rush you or pressure you. Okay. And if you change your mind, if you decide this is too much, I will respect that. You will still have your job, your room, your safety. Nothing changes if you decide to step back. C.O. Jean. Vanessa pulled back enough to look him in the eye. I'm not going to change my mind. I've never been more certain of anything. He smiled then, really smiled, and Vanessa felt something in her chest expand and warm. This was right. Maybe it was dangerous and complicated and probably ill-advised. But it was also real and honest and hers in a way nothing had been before. She'd been thrown into a storm and had landed in the arms of a monster. Except he wasn't a monster at all. He was just a man trying to survive in a world that didn't forgive weakness, who'd found someone who understood that survival sometimes required hardness, but could still choose softness when it mattered. They talked until dawn again, but this time they talked as something more than employer and employee. They talked as two people seeing each other clearly for the first time, without pretense or protection. It was terrifying and exhilarating and perfect. When the sun rose over the city, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, Vanessa stood at the window with Seojin's arms around her and felt something she'd thought was lost forever. Peace. Not the absence of danger or difficulty or struggle, but the deep, bone-deep knowledge that wherever the storm took her next, she wouldn't face it alone. That she'd found someone who wouldn't throw her out into the cold, but would stand beside her, even when standing meant fighting. The months that followed were the happiest of Vanessa's life. She and Seojin navigated their new relationship with care, learning each other's boundaries and needs. He was surprisingly gentle with her, patient with her moments of doubt and fear. She learned to trust that his affection was genuine, that he valued her for who she was rather than what she could provide. Their relationship remained largely private. The household staff knew, of course, but Seojin kept Vanessa carefully separated from his business associates. She was his personal life, sacred and protected, never to be used as leverage or exposed to unnecessary danger. She continued her classes, finished her degree. She started thinking about what she might want to do long-term, what kind of career she could build with her education and experience. Seojin encouraged every goal, every dream, never once suggesting she needed to stay small or limited. One evening in late summer, they were having dinner on the terrace when Seojin set down his fork and looked at her seriously. I have been thinking about something, he said. That sounds ominous. Not ominous. Just significant. He reached across the table and took her hand. Vanessa, you know I am not a conventional man. I cannot offer you a conventional life. But I can offer you honesty, loyalty, and protection. I can offer you a partnership built on respect and trust. I can offer you my heart, such as it is. Vanessa's own heart was suddenly racing. Seojin. I am not proposing. Not yet. We have not even been together a year. But I want you to know my intentions. I want to build a life with you. A real one where you are not just staying in my house, but making it ours. Where your dreams matter as much as my business. Where we face whatever comes together. Are you saying you love me? I am saying that if I am capable of love, what I feel for you is it. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me believe that maybe I am not beyond redemption. You make me happy, Vanessa. Real, genuine happiness. I did not think that was possible for someone like me. Tears were streaming down Vanessa's face now, but she was smiling. I love you too. I've been scared to say it, scared that it was too fast or too intense or just too much. But I do. I love you completely. He moved around the table and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in his world. And maybe she was. Maybe in a life full of transactions and violence and calculated risks, she was the one thing that was purely his, purely good, purely chosen. "We will figure this out," he murmured into her hair. "Build something that works for us, not for anyone else's expectations." Yes, yes. They stood like that as the sun set, two people who'd found each other in the middle of a storm and decided to build shelter together. It wasn't a fairy tale. There would be hard days ahead, challenges to face, dangers to navigate. But they would face them together, and that made all the difference. Vanessa thought back to that night in the snow, when she'd collapsed against iron gates expecting to die. If someone had told her then that the man on the other side of those gates would become her salvation, her partner, her home, she never would have believed them. But life was strange that way. Sometimes the worst night of your life was actually the beginning of something beautiful. Sometimes the most dangerous choice was the safest one you could make. Sometimes you had to lose everything to find out what really mattered. And sometimes, just sometimes, the monster turned out to be the hero all along. A year and a half after the night in the storm, Vanessa stood in the library of what she now thought of as their home, looking at the framed photo on the mantel. It was from their private commitment ceremony, just them and Mrs. Park and a handful of trusted friends. Nothing legal, because Seojin's life couldn't accommodate official records. But real nonetheless, promises made and meant and kept. She wore a simple white dress. He wore a black suit. They'd said words about partnership and loyalty and choosing each other every day. Mrs. Park had cried. Even Seojin's security chief had looked misty-eyed. It was perfect. Not conventional, not public, not the wedding she might have dreamed about as a little girl. But perfect for them, for who they were and what they'd built together. The door opened and Seojin entered, loosening his tie. He'd just gotten back from a meeting, the kind she still didn't ask about. He smiled when he saw her, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi yourself." He came over and wrapped his arms around her from behind, both of them looking at the photo. "Remembering? Always. Best day of my life." "Mine too." He kissed her temple. "Though every day with you is the best day, so that bar keeps rising." Smooth talker. "Only for you." They stood in comfortable silence, and Vanessa marveled at how far she'd come. From a girl who'd trusted the wrong man and nearly died for it, to a woman who'd found strength she never knew she had, to someone who'd built a life she actually wanted to live. She'd learned that safety wasn't about avoiding all danger. It was about being with someone who would face danger with you. That love wasn't about changing yourself to fit someone else's requirements. It was about finding someone who loved exactly who you already were. That home wasn't a place. It was a person who chose you every single day, no matter what. "What are you thinking?" Seojin asked softly. "That I'm grateful. For everything. For that storm that nearly killed me. For your gates being the ones I found. For you pulling me out of the cold. I am the one who should be grateful. You gave me something I thought was impossible. You gave me peace. We gave each other peace. Yes, we did." Outside, snow was beginning to fall again, the first of the season. But inside, in the warmth and safety of their home, Vanessa felt no fear. Storms came and storms passed. The cold couldn't touch her anymore. She was loved, protected, valued, and free. And that was worth surviving for. If this story moved you, made you feel something, or reminded you that sometimes the hardest moments lead to the most beautiful transformations, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional, powerful stories. Drop a comment telling me which moment resonated with you the most. Was it when Vanessa stood up to Jason? When Seojin first showed her kindness? Or the moment she chose to stay and build something new? Your engagement helps me bring you more stories like this. Thank you for reading, and remember, sometimes the storm that breaks you is actually reshaping you into someone stronger. Never give up.